For loops and while loops are going to be handled exactly the same as they are in C++ and Java and most other languages. If you want to have a for loop which prints out, say, the numbers 0 through 9 onto the screen, you just do it like this. For int I is equal to 0, I is less than 10, I plus plus, console.writeLine I. And this will go through 10 iterations, starting at 0, going up to I being no longer less than 10, and we increment I at each step. So as we run this, notice we get 0 through 9 printed out to the console. If instead of doing it that way, let's just say you want it to print out hello an infinite number of times, you could eliminate any number of these and just put semicolons there. Notice that we have no initializer, no conditional, and no increment. And now if we just print out hello, it will print out an infinite number of times to the screen. In fact, it will keep running until I terminate this program. And now we actually terminated it and it finished. But this is an infinite loop in an infinite for loop. You can do the same thing with a while loop. While, let's say, while true. Console.writeLine hello. So this will print out, again, hello an infinite number of times until we actually quit this execution. While loops are similar to for loops. I always like to say, if you know how many times you need to do something, you should use a for loop. If you don't know how many times you need to do it, or it could be 10 times or 20 times or some unknown number of iterations, you should probably use a while loop. So for a while loop, just to do the same thing that we did with the for loop, so just as a reminder, go ahead and uncomment this and change this back to I. And now we say for int I is equal to 0, I is less than 10, I plus plus. Oops. So this will print out I 10 times to the screen. To do the same thing in a while loop, you need to create a counter. Int counter is equal to 0, for instance. While counter is less than 10, we want to print out the counter, and then counter plus plus. This is the same as what this for loop is doing. In fact, in both runs, we will see 0 through 9 and then 0 through 9 printed out. Notice we have 0 through 9, and then we have 0 through 9. So these two are equivalent. Where a while loop is much more flexible is you have to choose, do you want to increment, decrement, do you want to multiply it by 2, maybe some iterations you want to change it. You can do the same thing with a for loop. A while loop is just a little bit easier to wrap your head around how to change it in unexpected ways. The other thing that you have, the final one, is a do while loop. So for that, you do a do, and let's see, we already have our counter here. I'm going to go ahead and reset counter there. Counter is equal to 0. And so you're going to do this. A while loop may not ever actually execute. Let's say counter is equal to 10 here. When you initialize it, this is never actually going to execute. It's going to check it. That's going to be false. And so it's going to skip all of this. A do while loop, you do the same thing. You put a do, and then you have while counter is less than 10. And put a semicolon there. And what this will do is this will always execute this once and then check the counter. And so notice the counter is always going to be true because I don't have a counter increment. Counter plus plus. And so this will always execute once before checking the conditional, whereas this may execute 0 times. This will always execute 1 time. Go ahead and change this back to a 0. Other than that, the syntax is the same. Console.writeLine counter. And so this will print out 0 to 9 to the screen. This will print out 0 to 9 to the screen. And this will print out 0 to 9 to the console. So I should get 3 groupings of 0 to 9. And it's a little hard to see, but I have 0 to 9, 0 to 9, and then 0 to 9. So these are 3 different loops that you should all be a little familiar with because, well, you've seen them in C++, Java, Python has something very similar. Most languages have some similar constructs as what C# does.